No, we're sitting here on. Well, of course, if you know who my guest is, you would understand why I'm so confused.
I'm lost.
I don't know if you know. I forgot what the date was. It's February 7th, year 2023.
It's this week.
And we had a great opening here this past Saturday, the 4th. I mean, it was 30 minus 30, but still we managed to have 30 to 40 people come in. We played the drums. We had music. We had company that actually stayed with us for the duration. So, I feel relieved. I feel that we actually one step forward. Next show at the beginning of March, we're going to have a group of photographers. Lenore Bailey is going to be one of them. Hopefully, Ellen Watson, Gerald Giliberti, and some others. So I'm looking forward to that. And, of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and, of course, the likes of you out there. And make it your business to fortify and enhance the concept of public access. Steve Romm is here with us this afternoon. Steve, I'm lost for words. The fact that you here the second time.
That was the secret.
Second time in 10 weeks.
From the last time that I was here, which was only a few days ago, I just took a nap and we're back.
What kind of change is taking place in your life that you are okay with it to show up twice in 1 week? Open up. You're amongst friends. So anyway, the other day I was I heard one of the famous artists of the last 100 years. I forgot who it was even. Anyway, he said that I see the painting, and you are very similar to that. You know, I kind of have to see the painting before I start painting it.
Right.
I work towards becoming familiar with what it is that I'm going to do. You said things that actually reminded me of what he mentioned, that usually in the morning when he wakes up, the first things that he remembers is envisioning the painting that he's going to paint that day. And usually it was successful. He was successful to receive the images, the composition, most of the direction.
Right.
The other morning, I said, you know what, the night before, I said, tomorrow morning, I'm going to remind myself to take a pause of like 3 to 5 minutes, start imagining, remembering, if I can see a composition that I can really dwell on. And I saw it, you know. Of course, it was something that I was so immaculate, I couldn't really figure that I would be the one who would be able to do it. So as I usually do, I kept that composition. I knew that I should not attempt to do what I really saw, and I know for sure I cannot, so I didn't want to spoil it. So what I did, I borrowed the basics from it, the base itself, the stage,
Right.
and I imported it into the expressionistic aspect of the abstract, and I'm telling you, it's been 3 days that the heater is on it directly to dry it. That's how much paint I dumped into it. But thoughtfully. And this morning I looked at it and it looked pretty familiar. What does that mean? I was successful, no? If it looks familiar.
You know what? The concept of, for me, and now if you've got that feeling, the one thing you have to remember is you can't fail. I mean, if you see a painting, if it's in your head,
Failure is
and
fiction.
you think it's too hard to paint or it's too complicated, you're the one that came up with that creation. So it's within your grasp to be able to paint it, and not to attempt to paint it as you see it. It's like giving up before you even touch the canvas. Go for what you see in your mind, as complicated as it may be. And there's no way that you can fail, because you know as well as I know that when you set out to do something and you see the image in your head before you start painting, it never ends up quite the same as what you started out to do. So if you see something, attempt to do it.
I wanted more like to become familiar with the skeleton first. And I was successful in that sense. So next time I'm going to get closer and closer to what I really saw then. I didn't want to jump too fast into the cold water. And then I said, So what I have established now, the next time when I take it one notch up and closer to what I saw, I would feel more comfortable and stand. I feel like I stand a chance, you know.
Strange thing is, the other night I was thinking about your work, and I thought there's something Haim hasn't done, which sort of combines what you do and what I do. And I thought next time I see him, which is now, is that before you start painting, take the entire canvas with your medium and color the whole canvas with an undercoating of paint so that there's blues and reds and different things all blended together. And then put your painting on top of it. But let the background come through.
I've done that quite often. I know exactly what you mean. And it's funny you should say that because anyway, if you complete your thought.
And it was like, I thought to myself, why am I thinking of Haim's work? And I thought, because I know what my next painting looks like, I finally had it resolved. So, other than now getting into the studio, the paint's there, everything's there. It's the motivation to get into the studio and actually paint it. And I'm feeling better about getting in there and starting it. And you know what it's like when you start a painting. Once you start it, that's it. That's your life.
I know, but what I'm really amazed by you is that for someone who creates something next to nothing, you have a lot to say.
Hey, time is irrelevant.
No, I know.
It's all how you. It's how you.
I
look
love
at
it. I love it that you're fluent in the way you verbalize your, sensations and thoughts and reservations. But on the surface,
see,
I know that you, for example, that big painting above the fireplace. Yeah, that in itself is a painting that will equal, let's say, maybe at least 50 paintings of mine. Do you agree? In terms of time invested, details, sessions, layers, and all of the above. So I when I look at it, I see an equal person in terms, I don't have to say 100, one as 100. I mean, it takes so much of your attention, like you say, every time you discover a new thing. Oh, I haven't seen this sailboat here. I haven't seen this couple here hugging on the beach. I haven't seen this fish jumping over out of the water. Things like that. But I think that I try to achieve that because when I heard that person say that, it was almost like you go and you measure your studio, like literally measure it. Like, let's say you go to your studio and you pause and then you say, okay, I'm going to take a measuring tape. I'm going to measure the studio. Why? I don't know. I'm going to do it. And you measure it, and then emotionally and spiritually you position yourself according to space, how much space. So when you want to play a head game with yourself, you don't have to reinvent. You don't have to prepare yourself all the way down to A to get to Z or 1 to get to infinity. You know what I mean? It's more like you feel more comfortable. You did your homework and you carry your homework with you. You enter the studio, you put the material on the table, and it's like the whole studio
the only limitation I
is
have
filled up with glow,
is how big the studio is, which will determine how big the painting can be. That's the only thing.
But it's more like, metaphorically speaking, that how much can fit within that space.
Yeah, I mean, if I had this wall to paint on, I'd use the whole wall.
But not in terms of canvases, in terms of ideas, in terms of breakthroughs, in terms of philosophizing.
People always accuse me of painting large paintings. And I paint large paintings because I've always had, even in a room this size, you can still do a large painting.
But do you know anyone who paints larger than me? I don't think you do.
No. I mean, that's part of what you do. And I think that...
I mean, you remember the 32-footer here in the LTV that I did?
Yeah, I mean, I think that...
the 64 you never seen.
It's you. I mean, that's part of what you do. If you did little miniatures...
I do that also.
And you do that also. And I've used to paint little 5x7 paintings years and years ago. And that's all I did. And I'd stick them in a frame. I'd take them out to a gallery out in Newton, Massachusetts. And every week I would take 10 of these little landscapes out, and every week they'd sell 10 of them, and I'd go back and do 10 more. Um, it you know uh, it's how you think of what you're going to do. I think for me, the difference is that in my mind, and the urgency to actually do the painting is almost irrelevant because I see the finished painting. So now I have the obligation to actually do it, which is almost secondary because I see it. I took a course when I got my master's degree, and I think this sums it up. I took a course, and the final exam was you had to write what the painting was that you were going to do and read it to the class so that they could visualize the painting. So people wrote, the painting is such and such a size, and they described the painting with what they wrote down. I went into class. I didn't have anything written down. I said, when I get finished, all I said to the teacher in the class is, when I get finished, you'll know what the painting looks like.
Yeah.
And I described it. And even though they had
Before you started painting it,
I hadn't even, it didn't exist. It existed only up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I described it to the entire class and the teacher. And when I got finished, they all knew exactly what the painting looked like. So if you asked anybody in the class, what does Romm's painting look like, they could describe it. I didn't write it down.
You created an impression enough.
I created the illusion for them.
Yeah, the impression also, so it fits,
So they knew what it looked like. And all of their writing, they got bogged down in the writing and trying to describe something that they hadn't done, and they were more concerned with what they were writing than the painting.
And it's also like the give and take, the plus and minus, the positive and negative. But I see more like, for example, because vis-a-vis this painting, because I had a conversation with a gallery owner, and I did an exercise of writing 117 poems, okay? Now, 117 poems is a hefty amount of poetry, especially when you say 170 good poems, poems that were written seriously. And it all started when I delivered one of my pieces to the winter show in one of the galleries in town. So I entered the gallery delivering my piece at the same time that another artist did. And she was ahead of me, and then one of the galleries said, "Oh, meet so-and-so." And she said, "This is my painting." And I looked at her painting, and I said, "Oh, I see about 117 poems there." And I didn't make too much of it. I left my painting. I had to go pick up my kids from school. I rushed. And then I get a text message from her that he gave her the thing that she thinks is a good idea. She would be interviewed at this show here at LTV. So when I answered her, I suddenly found myself writing 1 out of 117. It was funny, but I never thought that I'm going to follow through 117. And I did that. And the thing is that he read all the 117 poems, the owner of the gallery, and he said, choose 10 and give me 10 paintings that will go along with it. And I'll show it as a solo exhibition this year. So I said to myself, oh, thank you. Of course, no big deal, nothing to it. I was happy. I went and I started creating. And I realized there's so many old issues that you thought you resolved that are just showing their face again. And there's no way around it. And maybe you realize that just because you took a shortcut 15 years ago, it's coming to demand what's coming to it because you shortchanged it. I mean, it's amazing how it takes place. So I learned a few extra tricks since 15 years ago. So I said, okay, I got to pay my dues, no problems. Took about 2-3 gallons of paint, dispersed it on the surface according to my ability to control what I'm doing. You throw paint, you put it there, you know it's going to stay where you put it because you're ready for it. So then you know that at the end of the time, it's all about drying time. Once it's dry, the drier it becomes, the more demands and instructions it has ready to present to you. So it begins to tell you how it is that the painting wants you to proceed. I mean, I know you can relate to it.
I started painting.
And you heard voices, and you saw sights in your studio of people that did not exist, and voices that were not supposed to be there because no one was there but you.
I had a studio.
But you didn't think too much of it. You just accepted it as a given, correct or not?
Yeah, absolutely correct. I had a studio in Seacliff. It was huge. And it was a very strange studio because the floor was curved. It was flat and then it dropped down. So I had this huge canvas on the wall, which is rolled up in the house because there's no place to put it. It's bigger than any wall in the house. So we had to take it off the stretcher and roll it up. And the illusion was that when you were standing in front of the canvas, it felt immense because you're right up against it. But as you walk back and up, not only were you walking back, but you're going up a good 2 or 3 feet, the canvas got smaller and smaller and smaller. So when you were on the other side of the room looking at it, you'd look at it and you go, that's not a big canvas, that's not a challenge.
Yeah.
And the strangest thing was that the night before I started the painting, I had this vision, and it was of a blimp in the painting. I knew where it went, so I went down to the studio the next day. I made the stretcher, which was 8 feet by 12 feet, stretched it myself, and gessoed it, let the gesso dry, and painted the blimp. And there's this blimp on a huge white canvas with nothing else. And that blimp was finished. I didn't have to touch anything. It was at an angle going away from you. And from there, I never draw anything. I never sketch anything. I just know what it looks like. And I started painting. And it was the weirdest experience because I'd step back and I'd look at it. And there were these hard edges, sort of like a puzzle, coming out from the blimp. So the top left-hand corner got painted, and the bottom left-hand corner got painted, and then it went across the top of the canvas, and it just kept filling itself in. And I knew somehow, intuitively, I knew every step of the way. The one that you saw in the house, where you're looking through that window, which looks through another window, which looks down into the street, that was a painting that I knew the vision that I had to paint. The thing is, you had to look through the window. That was the important part. And those little red lines that take you through spaces. So it's like, I don't think you should ever be intimidated by anything that your imagination comes up with.
But to be intimidated, just the right amount is a good thing, actually, to kind of, because that's the way that leads you to humility, you know? Sometimes I feel like I'm stronger than the moment. I'm stronger than what the moment has to offer to me. I focus more on what it is that I have to offer to the moment. And I'm thinking that who I'm not. I'm thinking I am who I'm not, you know?
But each painting you grow with each painting.
About the painting, I'm not worried because I know I'm going to do it anyway, whatever it is, this way or that way. Whatever decision is going to take place, the painting will be done. That's what spells good news to me. That I, you know, also that I claim the night. You know, I got 5 kids, and you know, if they go to sleep, everything's said at 9:30 maybe, then you know, like 10 to 1 a.m. minimum equals like a whole day's work. You know, it equals like a world in itself. You know, and so I know how to claim the time, how to create the sacredness of the time, how to enhance its meaning and what it really means to me and to the process itself. And the fact that I can undisturbed really manifest and execute and take action and change and add and finish and begin and, you know, the whole 9 yards. And you just hear your footsteps coming and going, coming and going. You don't sit still. Because there's this canvas there, there's 4 pairs of shoes here, that small painting that I need to finish, this one that I planned for so long to start it. It's all in one session. At night, from 10 to 1 a.m., you can achieve what you cannot achieve a whole week sometimes. You're so focused. It's scary how focused you are. It comes back to haunt you, like you're almost like in disbelief that you're actually capable of doing these things. And then you realize that when you finished and everything is centered out of that session, you realize that you did so much, but you don't remember that you planned any of it.
Well, I had.
Do you follow? Can you relate?
I understand, but
Then you realize that actually, without meaning it, you created an attitude, a state of mind that led you to an attitude that made it possible for you to create like this without picking a subject matter. The subject matter is all over, smeared all over the place. Without thinking of a message or a direction, this painting is nothing but a huge message, and the direction is so clear. That's what
I did what I would call a Haim last night.
You did?
I didn't sleep.
Am I getting paid?
You're not. Yeah, you'll get royalties if it sells. I didn't sleep at all last night. Not even 5 minutes.
Because of me.
Because of you. Because of you. I was lying in bed, and I had the TV on, and I had my cell phone on, and I was listening to music, and I was thinking, and it kept going through my head, of something I needed to write. And I wanted to write it on the phone because I didn't really want to get out of bed and find paper and a pencil or something like that. It's the middle of the night. And I finally just said, I gotta get up and write this. Turn off the damn TV, turn off the phone, go downstairs, and I wrote it.
I'm like yawning all over the place. Sorry.
And I'm sitting in the kitchen writing this thing, which I did not bring in, but I'll read it to you afterwards. And I thought, this is what Haim would do if something came to his mind. I had no choice but to get up in the middle of the night and go downstairs and write this. Had no choice. I couldn't leave it to the next morning because it would be gone. And I look at it and I read it, and I'm not.
Can you describe? Can you summarize it like 4 lines, 2 lines summary?
I can't. I'll read it to you.
Okay.
When we go outside.
So it really belonged to the night, really.
It was done in the middle of the night, and it just, like a painting, just like a painting, it just came out. And it took so much energy to get up out of bed and go downstairs, but I wanted to do it on the phone. There wasn't any place on the phone to do it. And so I said, screw this, I'm going downstairs and I'm going to write it. I have to write it. It's really important. I don't do that much in the way of writing. When I do things in writing, it has a lot of meaning to it. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in it, which this has. And I went back upstairs afterwards, and I just was up all night, which usually gives me a lot of energy the next day. So, when you said, let's do the show, I said, fine. And, I think that you and I have an easy way of communicating with each other. We understand each other. And you understand to a great degree what I do and how I do it, and I understand how you do it, and it makes it a lot easier
I have
for
to
both
cut
of us.
cut you.
Just got to make a phone call.
Steve, how's it going? Yeah, I'm actually finishing a show here, so maybe it would be
Boy,
like
we're
around
getting
2:30. Okay, I'll give you a call when I'm heading on your way. Okay, you got it. Sounds good. Okay, see you soon. Bye bye. Listen, I'm a busy man. Okay, so
Can I make some phone calls? So Lenore's looking forward to doing the photography show.
I love it. I love it, and I think that with Lenore, there's if you can give her enough space to express herself with existing photographs that she has.
She's got some great stuff.
And please, I'm going to give her a major wall here. I want you to help her really put a group of photographs that are just, as rightfully portraying her capabilities.
Right.
That you and I, we know to what extent they're.
I mean, Lenore was one of the artists before I knew her as Lenore. When we had the publishing business, I looked at her work and I said, I'd publish you. And I think we published some of her pieces, which sold. And I always looked at her work as being far and above the average or even really good photography. Lenore had something that was superior to 99% of the people that came in with photographs and said, "Oh, I'd like to be published." And I said, "Good luck. It's been nice seeing you. Take your photographs someplace else. See if you can find somebody else that'll publish you." But
Also, she knows she knows her worth. She knows she's good.
And she has a vision that most people who do photography. I have a very good friend who went to Rhode Island School of Design, studied with master photographers, and out of all the work that he's done, he does portraits that are phenomenal. He, as I've said to him, you capture the person's soul. I have two of his portraits in my house, one of my father and one of my next door neighbor, who was my best friend. Both of them, they're not photographs, they're the people. They're the essence of who those people were. And every time I look at it, I see my father in the sense that he's in the room. And when I see my neighbor, he's in the room. It's not an image of him, it's him. And Bob's able to capture that, which a lot of people, they'll take a portrait, and it's a portrait. And it ends there.
Yeah.
His goes so much further than that. And as an artist, it's the same thing. There are paintings, and there are people who do paintings, and they just paint. And then there are paintings that go beyond the boundaries of the frame. They go beyond the boundaries of the paint on the canvas. And when you look at it, there's something magical and mystical and wonderful about seeing it, because it gives you, the viewer, the ability to see something that the artist may not have even known they were creating at the time. It goes beyond the boundaries of just a painting. And very few people are capable of doing that. So I think that when you go to do your next painting that is a challenge to you, just do it. And you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, I'm like thinking about something for a second. I got dove into this deep thought. But you know that there is it's amazing that I just saw an image and I captured it almost like a but it had too much flash and I couldn't get the details. I dove right into that composition. It was unbelievable. So hope I didn't scare you.
No, it's just boring the man to death. I looked at our last interview and I realized.
Was it good?
I said to Lenore, I said, I didn't get to say anything. Haim did all the talking.
Really? Was it like that?
Yeah, it was, and I didn't interrupt you because it was, we usually have a dialogue that I would say is pretty close to 50-50. And, we either comment on each other's art or what's going on.
Well, you certainly were talking more than I am this time.
Well, if you want to take a nap again.
No,
yes, the host is sleeping.
Sleeping, yes. Listen,
you're like Joe Franklin. You're the Joe Franklin of the Hamptons.
Isn't it? I'm getting there. Well, yesterday after 9 hours going up island and sleeping 4.5 hours.
Exhausted.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
And I didn't sleep at all last night, so I don't know when I'm going to crash.
But claiming, whatever it is that when you look at the world of art, the reality of creativity, when you speak of painting, you need to actually paint the paintings. There's no way around it. Unless you want to hire someone to do it.
You can intellectualize
Yeah,
it as much
exactly.
as you want,
But
but
at some
you gotta
point,
do it.
exactly, you gotta hold the brushes, the
Right.
paint. You gotta. Okay, good. You want to talk about poetry? It's fine by me, but I need to hear a poem now and then. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You want to hear? You want to talk about playing music and all this? I need to hear like a drum solo sometimes. Okay. So, as much as we think that this is a given and we take it for granted, other people, they think they're not done. They didn't have enough contemplating and philosophizing. And they think that maybe if they give it a little while longer, then by the time you will reach to it, it will just happen on its own. And the only thing they have to do is put their stamp on it. It doesn't work this way. People really believe that.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I think we have, and I'm sure there are other people who do things that they have a sense of satisfaction that they've accomplished something. There's something about doing art, whether it's sculpture or it's painting or whatever it is, that as an artist, when you're finished with something, with a painting, there's a sense of satisfaction, of creation. I mean, we're creating. And that sense of creating something from nothing, you've got this white thing in front of you, and there's nothing on it. And by the time you're finished with it, it's a whole different entity. It's become a painting. Good, bad, or indifferent, you've created something. And I think that as you go down the road and as you keep painting or sculpting or whatever it is, if you're a real artist, you get better and you get better and you get better and you get more courage to do things that you haven't done before, and you expand your horizon. And that's why I'm saying to you, if you see something that you're contemplating doing, but you feel you can't do it anyway. What's the worst that's going to happen? There is no such thing as failure. Doesn't exist. Because the worst that happens is you gesso over it and it becomes another painting. Or you keep working on it. The painting that's in the house that you love, the big painting with the clouds, has 7 clouds.
You mean my painting?
Your painting. The painting that's willed
You know,
to
I
you.
hope that you will never die. That I don't need to
No,
take
if
it.
I
Okay.
do die,
no,
you
I don't
get
want to
it.
think about it. I don't want to associate this painting with your death. Okay, sorry. You will live forever, and let it stay where it is now.
Well,
Forever.
I have to, because I have no idea what to do with all the paintings in the house and the furniture and everything else. So there's no such thing as dying, because I can't deal with it. It's like it's too much to even think about. But that painting, the painting and I had an argument, a constant argument. There's 7 clouds underneath that one cloud.
I know, and I loved it because I noticed and I sensed and I witnessed every layer of it. Remember how Lenore used to come? Every time she used to come, she said, "You wouldn't believe he just finished it, and now he's putzing with it again, and it's different." And she said, like the other day, last night I came and I said, "Steve, where's the painting?" She said, "You changed that cloud that she loved so much and over again." But you know what? The end result is inevitably brilliant. I'm just trying to think about, apropos your primitives, just imagine in the span of at least 65 years or 70 years even of painting and all this, and going from the 2-3 different kind of styles that you had, if you were to keep that pressing on the evolutionary process, it's just mind-blowing to think what kind of things you could have.
I don't know if the camera picks this up.
Yes.
Well, I walked into the gallery with this, and you'll notice on the back it's linen. That's white lead paint, and it had the rabbit skin glue, and all the things that I was supposed to do that I learned in college.
Can you give it to me? I'll show it also. Looks like 100 years old.
Signed in the bottom right-hand corner. Was it 1973 or 4, somewhere around there?
should sign it in the back.
I did. At that time, I never even signed anything on the back, but
Yeah, right here, like this, huh?
wow. I like looking at it.
Huh?
I mean, you think of evolution, put that up next to one of the landscapes or the abstract.
It's definitely, it's also a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. And I walked into the gallery, and the gallery
So
owner
what was
said
their
to
first
me,
reaction?
she said, I absolutely love the painting. She said, but I can't sell surrealism. She said, my customers don't want surrealism. She said, here's a book. If you can do what's in this book, I'll show it. And I said, okay. So I looked at the book and went home and did a
You
painting.
mean the style?
The style.
Yeah.
And I took a painting back 2 weeks later, and literally a couple of days later, she called me.
And she said,
I
have good news and bad news.
Right.
The good news is that I sold it.
And
the bad news is that
sold
you
it
make
twice.
another.
And at that time, we had scruples, throw those out the window. And she said, what are you talking about? You've got so much going on in the painting. If you move the big tree from the right to the left, nobody will know. And we'll sell 2 paintings. And from that point on, the painting started to grow and develop and become more sophisticated. And the one over the fireplace that you see was the end result of all of that, from the small painting to this huge painting. And I would get up in the morning, I'd go into the studio, and my first thought was, I can still put some more dots in there. It's like, how many dots can you get inside of a dot? So the flowers, which had little petals, had a dot in the middle, and there was another dot inside that dot. And then I went back with the 000 brush, which almost doesn't exist.
But what if
put more dots in?
What if? But first, let me mention that it's February 7th, year 2023, on a Tuesday, early afternoon, here with the Hello Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi. My guest is Steve Romm. What if you were to just what if I was to give you just regular brushes that you get at Michael's for like a dozen for $10, okay?
Which I do.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I'll give you that. I'll give you a dozen variations of basic colors and then some. Regular, $2 a tube. Just let's say a 36 by 36 and say, paint with this, thinking about the tubes and the brushes, nothing else. Really focusing on that. Ignoring that you're actually doing it on a canvas even. What do you think would happen? Now, don't philosophize. What do you think would happen? Okay, now you're facing the canvas. I gave you everything. You're ready. It's not what you're accustomed to. It's cheap paint. It's brushes that are kind of not even halfway decent, just super basic. And it's a canvas that no gesso, no schmesso, no nothing, just factory primed, period.
I think out of that would come something that would surprise both of us, and it would surprise me.
Give me a hint. What do you think?
A lot of movement, a lot of use of color, both conflicting and working together, but overall a sense of movement out of what I had.
Will you try hard to maintain the dignity of the pigment, or you would just stop at nothing? What do you think?
I think I would be mixing a lot of what was there and creating something. It certainly wouldn't be a landscape. It would be far more into the abstract area. And I think it would have some sense of continuity between the materials that I had. I don't think you're limited by the fact. I mean, if I had 4 colors to work with, suppose I only had 4 colors to work with, I would use those 4 colors in a way that, I'm looking at the painting behind you. I see yellow and I see orange. So if I eliminate almost everything else, maybe I would have a background that was, depending upon the paints that I had and the colors that I had, I'd have a solid background and I'd have some movement of some colors and some movement on it and keep it very simple, but with a sense of something dynamic going on that utilize those paints and the brushes. The brushes are irrelevant. Um, and I think out of it, I think that once you know how to paint, it's like saying the same thing to you. What would you do? You'd come up with something that you were satisfied with that would have a feeling of what you've done in the past. You can't get away from it.
But I come from there. I come from the disregard, not disrespect, disregard to.
Look, there was a period of time where I had to turn out. I had two buyers, two women, that used to buy abstracts from me every week, and they'd only pay $500 a canvas. So I had to turn these things out like instantaneously, and I put them up, put the canvas on the wall. I went into the studio. I had spray cans of paint. I had my paint, and I did these really great abstracts. And they'd come in and they'd buy everything. So, yeah, for $500, it took me 3 hours to do a painting. So I figured 3 hours isn't bad to get $500. Canvas and everything was cheap. I bought ready-made canvases. And so I was making, maybe I made $400 a canvas. But they were buying 10 of them. So I don't think you're limited. Your talent and your ability of what you've accomplished with your unrestricted canvases, with all the paint and all the brushes that you have, doesn't mean that because you don't have all the colors and all the brushes that you normally have, that what you end up with is any lesser than what you would do with all the stuff you usually have. You know, it's, I could see Michelangelo in his studio with a block of Carrara marble saying, it's not the size I want, and I don't have all my tools, and I don't have everything that I need, but I'm still going to carve something, and I'm going to chisel it out, and when I get finished with it, I'll have a piece of sculpture that's spectacular. And he's limited by size, he's limited by his tools, he's limited by the light's not great, but he's Michelangelo, you know, and he's going to turn out a great piece, no matter what. And the same thing about Da Vinci. You know, you look at Da Vinci's work and you go, where's there a bad Da Vinci? Is there a bad Da Vinci? He may have thrown them out. We don't know. But you look at the work, and you would expect that a Da Vinci...
There's no doubt that at some point he said, you know, I couldn't care for this. I don't want to see it again. Take it away from here. You know, and it is something that probably he would have, you know, invested hours and hours and only got days.
All do paintings, or we all do sculpture, we all do whatever we create, and you cannot have 100% success with everything.
I don't believe in criticizing too much and judging, but I believe that you can do it if it's your own work. You can be the judge, you can criticize yourself. To criticize yourself and to judge yourself and all this, you can do as much as you want. But I don't think that you should allow others to do it, or that you should do it to others, you know.
There are canvases that I've gessoed over that I looked at and I thought, that's a pretty decent canvas. It's a pretty decent painting.
Yes.
But you know what? I can do better, so I'll just gesso over it. You know, why buy another canvas when I'm not really happy with what I've got on this one? So I'll gesso over it, and I'll do another painting.
I wanted to take the advantage to read you poem number 1 and poem number 117. Okay?
From the beginning to the end.
Which one do you want? First, the first poem or the
Well, I'd like it in the
107?
order that it was done.
Oh, well, I'd like
Don't
it.
start with the end. It's like having dessert before you have your main course.
I know what I like. I like it from the beginning. I like that. Okay. So this one is called A Sixth Half Full. Okay. Weaving into the lucky dimension, a heartfelt gesture grieves through pigment sorting. It's a halo, this time dancing above the shadows as her eyes burn as she rests her head on a string, and music seeks an outlet to blend with the colors of blessings. One erupts over the gold string, coming to terms with his placement and meaning, coming to terms with its placements and meaning. The rest follow with pride and purpose. She remains detached, overlooking her own slippery journey. Okay, first one. And then going to
The last one.
the last one. Okay, the last one will be this one. It's a lot of poems to scroll down. My thumb is tired. This one, okay, 117 out of 117. Brown bag evaporating, disintegrating to become a grid of genius. You applied your touch gently, scanning a pathway. The role to be played was grand. Next time, the handshake will be a manifestation living up to the task, a daunting task. Breakdancing, hopping between rooftops across the livelihood of a community, a neighborhood, a frozen act of generosity. You keep to yourself, good for you, a proper groove penetrates. Penetrates. It's all in a day's work. You keep telling yourself. The echo is losing its character as you gather your composure to cross the finish line. I notice you from afar, deep into your painting, attempting to outsmart the grid. You find yourself hiding. I gently pull you into the open. You find a revised purpose of your search. Second time around, it's a joyous moment. We both agree to love each other. We both see the light from different angles. We both grind our teeth in our sleep. We are the epitome of our reflection. We fly with purpose. And it takes us to the raised texture of the surface while we're realizing the effect it has on the world around us. We bring our lips closer together. We kiss the air between our mouths. We land together in this belief. Rain the prose of life. Iron the center of the universe. And the end is not in sight.
How much time do we have left?
Why is that?
I really want to get the thing out of my car and read it because it goes with that.
It goes with that? Let me see if we have, what time is it? We got 7 minutes.
Okay, let me get it. You're not going to believe that you and I wrote the same thing.
Oh, really? I'm going to bash you now for 5 minutes.
You're not going to believe this.
Can I take a nap?
You can take a nap. I will be right back.
Don't bother to knock on the door. Just show yourself.
We wrote the same thing.
Okay, we wrote. I mean, if you keep that, we won't have time to read anything.
Be right back.
Okay. How about maybe we should go to another poem. 111. This is 111 out of 117. Actually, I love the idea that I did this project, and it goes. Nearing the word of the hour, counting minutes, showing signs of fatigue. It's normal to fall apart, but in the elation, the equation of the formula spins fire. That's a little too intense. That's a little too intense. Here we go. Is that it? Let's see. Here, Steve Romm is coming back with vigor. The sound of his boots crossing the hallway of the...
When did you write that? When did you write that?
Maybe like a week ago. It was the last poem.
This is the one that I got up in the middle of the night.
Okay, just to mention, there's February 7th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show on Tuesday afternoon, here with the Hello Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi. My guest is going to read now something that he wrote in the middle of the night. And we're going to be here tomorrow because we're actually concluding the show with this poem. We're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here today, early afternoon of Tuesday, February 7th, year 2023. Go ahead, Steve.
I have not done this on this show since, how many years have we been doing this?
Last time was with Reggie Cornelia, remember?
Yeah.
Okay, he's blowing his nose now. Oh, boy. And you complained that I fell asleep?
Hey, at least I didn't blow my nose while you were asleep. Would have scared you.
You see, considerate friends we have here.
All right. I saw the stars in your eyes, and you never let go of my hand. You gave me all your love and so much more. Even when the pain became a wall of disaster, we never let it into our lives, creating memories for a lifetime and beyond. I don't know how I am able to breathe without you by my side. My life flows in a meaningless river, every second filled with pain and emptiness. No goals can be set, no smile crosses my face. To be so alone is beyond my comprehension. No door offers sanctuary. I pass each minute, hour, and day, waiting to see you again. I believe that is all that sustains me. I have seen things that are beyond comprehension, yet I know and believe they exist. You will hold my hand again, and I will see the stars in your eyes. I will smile.
It is very similar. Amazing. Well, more power to you. Maybe I should invite you to the poetry reading we're going to have here later and read this poem, huh?
That was 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's good. That's good. I'm proud of you. That was good job.
So
Very touchy. And we're concluding pretty much. It's been 55 minutes that we've been on the air. 17 out of which I was asleep.
I'm telling you, you're the new Joe Franklin. I mean, Joe Franklin doing.
But
Joe
then when he
Franklin's
woke
show,
up, he was like completely with it, rejuvenated.
He had a certain set of questions that he had written down, and it didn't make any difference what his guest was saying because he had generic questions. And if you had them written out, it was things like, "So what are you doing now?"
Yes.
And then he'd go back to reading a book under the table. And then the person would finish speaking, and he would say, "And what do you plan on doing next?" And he did it at every interview. It was the same dozen questions.
I remember in the 80s when I came, he was big. He was like at 1 a.m.
And
Wasn't he on at 1 a.m.?
It was something like that. And he answered the phone himself, and he'd go, he'd call up the Joe Franklin show. He'd go, "Yeah, what do you want?" I'd like to be on Thursday night. Fine, be on Thursday night. Just be here a half an hour earlier. And that was it. And you'd get on the show, and you'd realize he didn't pay any attention whatsoever to his guest. He could have had Muhammad Ali on. He could have had the Pope on. He could have had God on. And he asked his 12 questions and would read his book under the table. And the answers were so generic, it didn't make any difference what the person said. The person could have been the son of Sam and said, "I just shot 14 people," and it would say, and
What's your plans next?
"So what do you plan on doing next?" And it was hysterical.
Yeah. And there's no questions in between. There's just jumps from one to the other. Again, thank you for your generosity and participation, Steve. We don't take it for granted here at LTV. We appreciate your effort to show up and in your own way to support the station and the concept of public access. And in my eyes, to consider you and still consider you as a mentor. I don't know.
I'm going to have to find another radio station to say, the last time I was interviewed by somebody, they slept through the whole thing.
I know, exactly. They have to match it. No, it's got to match. They have to keep up the good spirits.
Bring
as
a
I said,
mattress.
here you go. As I said, we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here this early afternoon of Tuesday, February 17th, 2023. My name is Haim Mizrahi. Here with the Hello Hello Show, and thank you to my guest, Steve Romm. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.